So today's theme, we're going to be talking about forgiveness, peace, and nonviolence. I showed this slide last week. This is what the people in Nigeria are dealing with. They are dealing with Boko Haram destroying everything that they have. And so how do you move on from there? How do you respond to an enemy that has done this? We met with several people who live in the Mubi area, and I chose 3 women whose faces really, to me, depicted the emotion of the moment. This woman's face to me goes back to resilience. She said that they can burn our buildings, but they can't burn our spirit, and we are relying on Jesus to get us through this time. Try the next one, Noah. This woman, to me, depicted there's a lot of distrust between the Christians towards the Muslims, and rightly so. They don't know who to trust. Their Muslim neighbors have turned on them, have pointed them out to be targets, and so there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And the next one, please. And there's deep sadness. While they are extremely resilient and faithful, they are human, and they are coping with the loss of loved ones and property and possessions, and having nowhere to go from here, having no source of income, nothing to start with. Next one, please. And they, while they are an incredible example to us, they are human. This was at their annual conference they call Majalisa, and one man stood up and said, "We have turned both cheeks to Boko Haram, and they have slapped both cheeks. What do we do from here?" Next slide, please. And this is Wakuma, who I thought about it later is probably younger than me, but was like a father to me while I was there. And he stood up and said the words that we said this morning. He said, it has been said to you to love your neighbor and hate your enemies. But Jesus has told us to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us, and we are called to love them until the end. And when they pray, I told you they pray that they are thankful to be among the living. They also pray for Boko Haram and their families every day, and that just amazed me. We can't relate to being persecuted here in America. The only thing I could relate it to was September 11th, 2001. And most of us were not directly affected by that. But I thought to myself, was my first reaction to pray for Al-Qaeda? It wasn't my first reaction. That was their gut reaction, was praying for their people and praying for their enemies, and they continue to do that. Next slide, please. And how is the church responding? How is the Church of Nigeria? It reminds me of that case when the Amish school children were shot, and the Amish community's response to that was such a message and a witness to the world. And the world is looking at EYN in Nigeria, and they're looking at how they're responding. This is one of the churches there in Mubi, in the area that was hardest hit. Next slide, please, Noah. And what they're doing is they're caring for the people. They're providing these big cisterns of water. People come for free water. Next slide, please. And they're providing housing. They're just taking in whoever needs a place to go. They're taking care of the people that need to be taken care of. This is Jonathan. Jonathan spent the night in a tree when Boko Haram invaded actually he was at Colt Bible College at the time, when it invaded his area. And he spent the night in a tree. When he saw his window of opportunity to escape, he ran, and he just ran as fast as he could for days. And a family who knew him from the university recognized him and took him in. And when he went into their house, the first thing they did was hand him some clothes. And he said, "I don't need clothes, I'm fine." And they said, "Yes, you do." And he looked down, and he had been running so hard and so fast through the brush, and African brush is thorns, that his clothes were ripped to shreds, and he didn't even realize it. That's the terror that they're experiencing, and that's what they're dealing with. Can you get back to where you were now, Noah? One of the things that the church is doing is trauma healing workshops, which I was honored to participate in a few of these. And the cool thing about this, it was also all men, mostly men, which caught me off guard because I'm used to working with women and children. But this was neat. This was a group of Christians and Muslims working at trauma healing together. What a powerful thing that was to experience. Next slide, please. These are some men. They broke up into small groups, and I'll tell you, there was a lot of sharing. It was in houses, so I didn't know what they were saying, but there was a lot of tears. And they talked to us afterwards, and they all said how meaningful it was, how they were all bent on revenge, but they had learned that violence never brings sustained peace. The only thing that brings sustained peace is peace. That you need to respond in peace, you need to respond by forgiving. They are really interested in learning how to forgive each other. And that's a hard thing. And remember back to the first slide, what they've lost, the people they've lost. Everybody's lost several members of their family, but they're learning that forgiveness, the way Jesus taught, is the way to go, and the church is helping them to reach that. All right, next please, Noah. This guy here, Marcus Gamanci, also took great care of me while I was there. Marcus is an amazing guy. He's a Christian, he works for EYN, but he will help whoever needs his help, Christian or Muslim. He's one of the guys really organizing the coalition of healing together with Christians and Muslims. He has helped people on both sides. Nobody knows this. He told us stories of people that he's helped that have escaped from Boko Haram, and he was telling us about this one young man. He was telling Peggy, Gish, and I, who were working together, and he said, "Would you like to meet him?" And we said, "Sure, that would be great." I don't have any pictures of him because it wasn't appropriate to take his picture. And he said, "Is it okay if he comes in the car? It would be safer." And we were like, "Okay." And before I knew it, an ex-Boko Haram guy is sitting next to me in the car, and I'm shaking his hand. And I was like, I mean, I can't even describe what that was like. And I'm not even directly affected. And to imagine what it would be like for the EYN people who have been directly affected to be able to look somebody in the face and forgive them. But, if Marcus's theory is if somebody really is repentant, it's not for us to judge, it's for God to judge, and we need to help Muslims and Christians alike. Next slide, please. One of the really neat things Marcus is doing is building IDP camps, which stands for internally displaced persons. This camp in particular is going to be a Christian and Muslim camp where they'll be living side by side. He's got it filled already. The grand opening was the day after I left, unfortunately. But the housing is on either side of the picture, and the building in the middle is a shared kitchen. So these people are going to be cooking together and eating together, Christians and Muslims, trying to recover from their losses. Next slide, please. They worked together to make the bricks to build their houses that they will be sharing in their community, which I thought that was a really neat idea. Next, please. And there's the girl on the left is Muslim. Excuse me, the girl on the right is Christian. So they're Christian and Muslim kids getting water together at this camp. Next slide, please. And then when you do trips like this, like I go into it, already have my preconceived notions and my own core values, and these trips really shake all that up. I know the first time Sarah and I went to South Sudan, we had some definite ideas of how we felt about some issues that were prevalent in the church at the time, and some very powerful and impactful things happened, and we were just sitting on the airplane together on the flight home, and we were both silent, which is unusual, and she turned to me and she said, "I don't know what to do with that now." And I said, "Yeah, I don't either." Well, this is Peggy Gish and I, and we're standing with Ayman, who is a Muslim leader. And one of the things that Marcus does, there was a meeting of about 40 people. There was Catholic bishops there was Islamic leaders, there were Muslim leaders, and their whole goal was, how do we heal Nigeria? We're working together to heal Nigeria. We're putting our differences aside and what needs to be done to bring peace to our country. Next slide, please. We visited a school where we're starting trauma healing sessions as a regular part of the curriculum because the young children are also deeply impacted, and they're the ones that are going to be impacted for the longest, obviously. So we felt it was really important to have it be a regular part of their curriculum, and these are just some of the children. Next one, please. And just another one of them. And the next one. And this is the last slide. One of the important steps of healing and peace and nonviolence and forgiveness is to talk to each other and to listen to each other and to learn. And Peggy and I spent a lot of time hearing people's stories, and that's so important, just listening and trying to learn and trying to understand. And that's the first step in forgiving and peace and nonviolent response. Thank you.